Welcome to Emotional Sobriety.
I'm just so happy to see you guys. This has been a week for me full of anxiety and a little bit of some gaps swinging between branches on my emotional sobriety. But when I see you guys and we're doing the pod, I do feel a sense of equilibrium returning. But let me hear how you guys are
You
doing.
can relax. We're here. We're here.
Patrick, what caused the anxiety? What were the gaps?
Well, I'll just explain. I'll just give you a short vignette from this morning. Is that I was at a meeting and I encountered one of my heroes, one of my writing heroes, was there, and I was just full of kind of like I spoke with him for a little bit, and I just had this feeling of like not good enough, and a feeling of kind of wanting to share with this person how he inspired me, not wanting to ask anything of him, but to just kind of. But it's, you're in a big crowded room and like, everybody's got their own recoveries that they've got to tend to first and foremost. And I think I did okay. He was extremely generous with his time and we had some chitter chatter, but like, I think, I don't know. I just like, I still have this feeling, I think in recovery, or just more broadly as a person of like imposing that my presence is an imposition on others. And the more that esteem I hold them in, the more difficult it is for me to really I don't know, feel comfortable in my own skin or feel
let me jump in here because he told me this story just before we came on the air, and I just to validate what you're doing, I want to remind you that you said I met one of my heroes in a meeting. Do you remember what I said right away? It was
You said oh no. Yeah, you said oh no.
I said oh no. Because there's no way, I mean, maybe, but there's no way we're going to walk away from that feeling like, oh, I just nailed it. This is a good time to remember, that you got all those opportunistic should voices in your head that are always looking for something to criticize, even when we're well into our recovery, and they're going to speak to you about that kind of stuff. But and this is $6.50 will get you a cup of coffee, but I'm sure you did fine from what you described too. I'm sure you did not overstep. And I think when somebody comes up to you and tells you how much you appreciate them, how much they appreciate you, if you're a decent person, you feel good about it. You made him feel good.
I hope I did. I hope I did. Yeah. So that's the most recent thing. And otherwise, I'm working with a sponsee, which is in the good category, actually. This is kind of the first person I worked at length with on chapters of the big book, and doing my best with all that. But do I feel great? Nah. But I'm trying. So.
Me neither. I don't feel great either.
How you doing, Thom?
I don't feel great, but I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay. Looking forward to watching playoff football today. Distract myself from myself and just But it's I've been snowed in here since Monday, up on top of this hill. I've got cabin fever and I'm still complaining about getting back to eating real food after this cancer stuff, and I'm kind of I'm a grumpy guy is what I am today. I think, yeah.
Well, I'm with you, Thom. I've been grumpy too. This chronic pain has been, it's been.
Oh yeah, I meant to check with you about that. Is that gotten any better at all?
Today it's a little better, man. But the problem is I cannot get a full night's rest.
Yeah.
I cannot, and so I'm operating between on 3 and 5 hours of sleep, and it's not even very restful sleep. So talk about grumpy, man. It's like, geez, like a bear coming out of hibernation.
You win the contest, because I tell you what, I've had some serious chronic pain stuff in the years past, but I never had chronic pain that didn't stop when I got still. When I laid down, and it's like I've had friends like what you're talking about, is you lay down and it still just keeps coming. I haven't had that experience, and I hope I never have it because I can't. Yeah, I would be beyond grumpy.
So I'm doing all the things I can to get ready for the surgery. They moved it up to February 7th.
Good.
So I went in for my pre-op this last week. They took blood work and stuff. Now I've got to get in front of a cardiologist this next week, and then in front of my internist, and they have to sign off on the surgery. And barring any other complications, I should be ready to go the week after that.
And I know that that's moving it up. And I know when you're hurting like you're hurting, that seems like a long way away.
Long way away, brother. It does feel like a long way away. But
yeah, we're going to get into real soon. But we're going
to. I mean, so this year, starting off with, instead of emotional pain, I'll start off with physical pain. I mean,
yeah, well, spread it around.
That's right. We might as well cover all bases, right? This is our group, man. I swear to God, we are we are in infirmary together here.
Well, if our listeners haven't figured it out yet, at least with you and me, Allen, when you sign on to our podcast, you're signing on to listening to us age.
Yes, you know? That's exactly.
That's part of it. It's like we age out loud here.
Well, hey, I'm not a spring chicken either. I'll be on the other side of 40 before we know it.
Yeah, that really makes me feel.
That would be the definition of a spring chicken.
That's so sad for you, man. I'll tell you, my heart bleeds for you, Patrick.
Yeah, maybe that.
Oh my God, man, that's terrible.
I'll tell you guys one thing that I said to the writer this morning, that foot and mouth moment. That reminds me of what I just said to you guys about being on the other side of 40, and then immediately realizing that was not, a positive thing for you guys to hear. Is I told him that, yeah, you're just like, no. But I told him, the first film of his that I saw, I was in high school. And when I mentioned the name of the film, he lit up like, oh my God, this is great to hear somebody telling me how much he enjoyed that movie when he was a kid. And then I immediately followed with, it was in an empty theater. and I saw his face just fall, and he was just like, "Oh wait." Okay.
I think I would laugh if I were him, though. That's a funny story. Period. I mean, he can tell that story. I met a fan who remembered this movie, but he remembered watching it by himself in the theater.
Yeah, exactly.
What we're going to be doing is, as I mentioned in the last podcast, is that I'm very excited that the AA Grapevine, in addition to 2 books complete with a bunch of stories from AA members about emotional sobriety, they've decided to dedicate this past month's to January Grapevine to emotional sobriety. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to begin with Thom and I, and we're going to have other guests join us down the road. We're going to read a story from the Grapevine and then talk about it from our perspective of emotional sobriety.
Yes.
So what is the first story we're going to read, Patrick?
All right, the first story is called Tending My Garden. It's by C.W. from Tucson, Arizona. Each day she plants a flower or a cactus, she's reminded that just as in life, she's not in charge. One beautiful morning, I walked out to my car, heading out for my morning AA meeting. I looked over at my front yard. It was becoming a source of pride and joy. I'd been spending time with my hands in dirt, landscaping my yard with native flowers, cacti, and succulents. I hadn't had this much intimate interaction with the earth in a long time. Working with my hands like that was therapy, keeping me grounded and connected. It was strengthening my relationship with my higher power, who I call HP. Before I could emit a sigh of admiration, an overturned plant pot caught my eye. The sweet potato plant I had just adopted was gone, stolen. As I looked around, surveying the damage, I actually fell to my knees and cried. My dragon's blood was stripped to the bones and discarded. My sweet little succulent was torn to bits and scattered all about. The celosia looked as if it had been hacked with a machete. At first I thought, what kind of a person would creep into my front yard and create such a calamity? How dare they? After a few deep breaths and another sip of my coffee, I felt a tinge of realization and relief. This was not a human's doing. A human would have likely stolen a pot or a decoration. Besides, there was no mean-spirited energy at the scene, and I sensed at once that no ill will was intended. It was probably just a hungry javelina who came upon the buffet that was my yard. I took a step back and noticed that my bougainvillea plants remained unscathed. Some beauty remained. It wasn't time to throw in the trowel. This was an opportunity for me to reflect and dig deep. Literally, I had been handed a lesson on growth and renewal. It was a clear, bittersweet reminder of my own susceptibility. When I am feeling strong and relentless, thinking my boat isn't rockable, that's when I'm most vulnerable to fall in the water. False pride, that feeling when I've got it all together, is the mindset we alcoholics often grab onto before we've even started, and it's dangerous. I'd recently shared with a fellow AA this idea. I have no issues with whiskey. I'm not even tempted, so I don't think I'll need daily meetings. Consequently, HP intervened, threw me some turmoil that day, and reminded me of my fragility. It was a beautiful yet sharp slap in the face. Just like all of us, I'm always one drink away from a relapse. I knew I needed to discover humility. Months later, I encountered the seventh step, humbly asking HP to remove my many shortcomings. I'm not in charge. By then, I had forgotten the lesson I learned in the garden. When I plant flowers, bury a seed, or transplant a cactus, I'm not at the helm. I'm just a servant. I have no control. No matter how much I try to regulate my garden, it remains out of my hands. I must let the plants live life at their own pace. Once I applied that concept to my sobriety, I lamented the amount of energy I used to spend trying to control every aspect of my life. Time to learn to let HP take it and guide me. What a concept for my alcoholic, control freak, stubborn mind to digest. The AAs in my life remind me daily of the beauty that is my life. Regardless of how much I've been trampled, I'm not ruined, and my front yard was not ruined either. I mended the damage done to my garden space as I'm repairing the landscape of my life. I make progress every day, and I'm reminded to slow down and take it one day at a time. Every day is a time to heal, grow, and build my sober life. A wise man once said, "Each day we are born again. What we do today is what matters most." I keep that in my heart. Just for today, I'm sober, working through the steps, and doing service work, and my garden has never looked more beautiful.
I just started by just saying, to me, it's about expanding our awareness. It's like, you know, the word sober, the word, even the word recovery, it becomes, when we really look at it from the kind of perspective this article is talking, these things are so much more than not drinking, you know. And it's like so even the idea of, oh, I'm not afraid to relapse, loses some meaning, because the truth is, I probably say that, or have said that, could say that after 37 years of not drinking, and I've seen people who like me have been sober this long and gone back out. I'm not, you know, I do absolutely know it can happen. It can happen to me, but on a day-to-day basis, you know, when that's a constant in my life. This kind of thinking, this kind of article reminds me that to expand, be sure I'm thinking, when I think recovery and sobriety, that it's not just not ingesting alcohol. It's all, and that's what emotional sobriety is for me. Since it's been introduced to me, and certainly as much as you introduced it to me in my life, Allen, it's, you know, it's actually a long list of things that I keep an eye on in order to maintain my balance. You know, and all of it coming back down to my own integrity.
Yeah, I mean, when I read that story, what I feel is, or what I relate to is, there's this external thing, in this case being her garden, that she has this idea of perfection surrounding, and this idea of, you know, that things have to be kind of arranged in this particular way. And you know, when she walks in and sees that it's been ripped up, you know what I mean? Like, there's something about that like cuts her to the core. It's not the experiences, but it's whether or not we claim those experiences that are the test of how emotionally sober we are. And I think that, like, her recognition that, you know, finding some humility and kind of recognizing this was an opportunity for her to kind of like dig deeper and, like, you know, where is my serenity coming from today? You know, I think that's what I got from the story.
Well, yeah, the immediate thing that I think most of us can identify with, and that she describes, is that feeling of being violated. I had my office broken into before. I've had my car broken into before. It's deep, and it's offensive. You know, and actually, I'll just sell this real quickly. Years ago, I was at a Robert Bly workshop in Atlanta, and we were, and it was, and Michael, the drummer, I can't remember his last name, Michael somebody with him. There was
Michael Mead.
Yes, Michael Mead and Robert Bly, the poet. When I came back out to the car, the windows had been smashed. Window had been smashed, and you know, and it was that horrible feeling of violation. The good news is I don't usually have too much people want to steal, so that's a good thing about me being me. But the other thing is, when I finally looked through and did an inventory, the only thing these people got was a big bag full of Robert Bly tapes. And so I later then decided, oh, well, these people may have needed that. It's probably a good thing. Maybe this will help them transform. You know, it was either, you know, you only got a bunch of self-help tapes, or hey, you're welcome to my self-help tapes. But my point, go back to the point. I love what in the article what she's doing as she processes it, as she moves toward it. Her perspective shifts, and I mean, and if that's not that's not the practice of emotional sobriety, I don't know what is, because we're taking a second and third and fourth look at things to say how else can I see this? How else can I interpret it?
This happened to you a couple of years ago, you said, so you already been sober a while, but right?
Yeah, but I'd already been sober a while, but it was not more than a couple of years ago. It was a long time ago. But yeah.
How long did it take you to kind of positively reframe?
I think I did that. I think I did that within the day. I really, but keep in mind, I was at a Robert Bly workshop with a bunch of support people. So, I was surrounded by, it's big, giant group therapy. So, I mean, it's like, I'm happy to take whatever credit I can take for it, but I would just say, like, no, it became an experience that happened in the workshop for me, because I got to take it back to the group and we processed it and laughed about it. And, and all I had to do was get my window repaired in my car. It's like, not that big of all the problems there are in the world, that's not really one of them. And by the way, just while we're on that subject, putting things in perspective is, even long before I was thinking in terms of emotional sobriety, that's one of the things I've learned. I don't think the 12 steps of AA or any program has a corner on this, but putting things in perspective and really going toward them purposely to do that is such a huge part of being a healthier person. It's how else can I look at this? The fender bender that has ruined my life. I think, well, for all I know, it saved my life from a deadly crash down the road. Even, I mean, I'm just playing little mind games with myself, but it really is looking at things from a perspective that actually brings me back to gratitude.
Yeah.
I have a friend who used to say to me, said, wake up every morning and think of think of a bunch of problems that you don't have, problems that you haven't ever had, problems that you have friends who have, whatever it is, but problems you don't have, and then be grateful. And I remember at first I used to feel guilty because I would think about, I could wake up and think Allen's in horrible chronic pain, because and I use that to be grateful. I'm not. I'm sitting there trying to choke down some food I don't want to eat, but it's like I'm not in chronic pain. It's like, so that's great. I'm not hurting Allen by doing that. It took a while for me to get that I'm not wishing that on him, or I'm not doing it. I'm simply expanding my awareness to realize there's always a way for me to feel grateful, and I just have to find it.
Well, let me tell you what stood out for me in this thing. First of all, when something bad happened to her, she took it very personal.
Yeah.
Look, somebody's doing it to me. They came into my yard. They vandalized my yard, broke my pots and stuff like that. So first thought was what? Taking it personal. Somebody's out to get me. The world has.
Oh, yeah. As you saw it as violent. It was violent. Yeah, when she described it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, they just trashed her pot, and then and then she started to cop a resentment, and then she said, "Well, wait." Then she had the second thought, and we talk about this a lot, Thom, I've heard say it a lot. I say it, I even write about it in my book, is that the second thought oftentimes is much more centering, and especially if it doesn't take things personally. And so instead of thinking that somebody came in her yard and vandalized her with bad intentions, she talked about it being an animal that was hungry and looking for food. And so when she put it in that perspective, she could cope with it in a much different way. So there's a very important lesson here in terms of when we take things personally, it's much more difficult to deal with what is. Then we object to it. We feel like a victim. We get angry about it. We cop a resentment about it, et cetera, et cetera. And, like, even if it was a person, it wasn't personal. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the other thing about it. I mean, but it wasn't it probably wasn't. We don't even know. I mean, but it was soothing for her to think, some kind of a creature from the desert came in and knocked the pot over when it was trying to get something to eat, right? After having a very, very slim diet for this period of time. So that was one thing that really stood out. Is let's be aware of and be cautious of the first voice that's going to take things personal, and wait for the second voice to come.
Right.
And that second voice for her was, first of all, that it wasn't personal. It just happened. And now her job was to cope with it and to figure it out. So, so that's one thing. Second thing is that the expectation that somehow life is going to be the same from day to day is a setup. I mean, my God, if anybody knows that from this last, year and a half for me, where I think my marriage with Jess was all, solid and we were moving forward, and here this whole drama is unfolding outside of my awareness, right? And all of that stuff that went on, and realized that, my God, it wasn't the same at all. Well, things had changed, and I had this expectation somehow that it was just, I think you guys have heard me say it before, that you just cut, or you copy
and paste,
reality into tomorrow, and it's a setup, man. And that's the other thing I saw that she did, is that she did that. She just expected that nothing's going to be changed, and things are going to change all the time. And the change is not the problem. The problem is how we cope with it. That's a big part of what's going on, I think, in this article. And I really, really resonate, because I think that there's two very important lessons that we can deduce from what she's talking about, and really apply it to what we talk about, in terms of, right. Now, she doesn't use that language, right? And that's the other thing. I think it's great because she's captured the essence of it. And I think what we're doing is we're putting kind of a descriptor on it, so that people start to think of it this way, and to develop a schema about emotional sobriety, right? These concepts that we're trying to share with people that can be so useful in really coping with life. So I think it was a great article for us to keep.
That's such a great point, though, Alan. The language part of that. One of my favorite Buddhist sayings is, "Be careful not to mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself." It's like, and so often that's what we do with language. We become so, and you don't have to be our kind of addict. I think human beings are by nature addictive. And we can become addicted to certain things, and we can become addicted to the way that we think of things, the way we describe things. Because I think that there's a second level in this story that is there for us to learn from, which is a place where we are always ready to confront ourselves benevolently, productively, because to get to that second place, to listen to that second voice. I love you remembering our shortcut, Alan, which is first voice, not me, second voice, me. And so you want to be sure that second voice isn't just agreeing automatically with the first voice. But the idea of every one of these stories, every one we've told so far, the one that was in the article, are just good examples of there are going to be opportunities every day of our lives in which we need to take a step back, confront, ask ourselves questions, and look for a different way of doing it, and not basically it's about not being lazy. Don't just accept the feeling, like you say, the first voice. Don't, just because you feel horrible or feel that this feels violating, you don't stop there. You don't put roots down there. You keep thinking about it.
Yeah, I still have the tendency sometimes to assume that if the first voice I'm getting isn't the emotionally sober voice, that I'm kind of completely lost in the woods, when the reality is that it's a process. It's almost always a process, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, taking that impulse, which, in my case, I'm an addict, and I have a lot of negative or unproductive tendencies. And so emotional sobriety for me, it must be a practice, a way that I am kind of trying to shape and reframe that experience, the way that I'm experiencing things, in a way that's more constructive, more yes and rather than no but, right?
Well, but also, Alan, to answer this too, because how often is the first voice the wisdom voice anyway? It's like, for me, I think I would venture to say oh, let me do the math. That would be never. It's like it's like what I tell clients a lot of times is you have wisdom inside of you, even though you don't know it. But wisdom inside of us is just like a wisdom outside of us. If you think about the wisest people you know, these are people who do not come busting into your house, grab you by the collar, and start screaming wisdom at you. It doesn't matter if they know better. They're not going to push it on you. They're not going to shove it down your throat. But they're there if you go to them. Promotion, not promotion, but attraction. If you go to somebody and ask them for, people like this. They're quieter. They're not going to push it, but they will respond to you. And yet the voice inside of you is never going to be at least for me, I would say, it's never going to be as loud as those sabotaging voices. It's like they're going to be screaming at me. My addiction can scream at me. My should monster can scream at me. People's eating disorders. But the wisdom voice is, I often say it like this, especially those of us who are old drunks. You remember sitting in a crowded bar across the table trying to have a conversation with somebody late at night, where you're leaning really close to them. You're trying to read their lips. You're trying to, what? Say that again. It's like, at the beginning, that's kind of what it's like to hear the wisdom voice. It's in a lot of noise, but just keep focusing on it. Because ultimately you're going to be able to tune this other stuff out and listen to that wisdom voice, but you have to go looking for it. You have to ask for it. It's not just going to show up automatically. We value the struggle, not just for its own sake, but we all three of us sitting here, we have a history. We all tell stories, but what are they? They're and Patrick, you're a writer. You write these stories. I mean, isn't that the human condition? If you write a story without a struggle, who's going to read it or watch it?
Yeah.
Nobody cares. So what you do is you reflect humanity. What happens is we struggle, and that becomes each one of those things. And I don't mean we just need to seek struggle for its own sake, but that's how we grow. It's they always tell people that you don't go to the gym and then complain about the fact that weights are heavy. It's like, no, they're heavy for a reason, where you're using them to get stronger, and the weights do not get lighter, you get stronger. And that's what we're doing.
I will confess to having complained about that though before. They are fucking heavy sometimes.
Who makes these weights so damn heavy?
Yeah. I miss that though. I miss that. We're all missing things that we hope to be getting back to soon after a period of distress. And
I bet you do.
Being able to exercise like a normal person is something I very badly want.
That's what we all want. I always say, I want to eat like a normal boy. You want to exercise like a normal boy. Allen wants to walk around, without pain like a normal boy.
It's cool working with a newcomer on the steps. Very preliminary, but the work I'm doing with you guys, the conversations I'm having with other recovering people. I work with somebody who's very early in their sobriety. I hope that I'm enlarging my spiritual life as is recommended. I hope that I'm getting closer to emotional sobriety. It meant a lot to me in the show last week to have her articulate this process of kind of like shambling, stumbling, shuffling towards greater recovery. It's not going to be this kind of like glorious and perfect process. There's going to be a lot of like hiccups along the way.
Right. Well, it's something Allen talks about there. That's the thing. Keep moving, and don't. And one of the things that I had a conversation with somebody earlier today that reminded me of this is so often we'll get ourselves stuck because we don't know it, but we're insisting that we know what comes next. Every little step forward is a leap of faith, because simply we do not possess the ability to predict the future. I'd also like to say, nor do I want it. I would not want it if somebody offered it to me.
I have enough to be scared about.
That would be too much of a burden for me. I'm not equipped for that job. I'd give it to Allen. He could be our prophet.
Whatever this is, we're getting ready for the next. I feel like that chickpea in the poem that Rumi writes about, right? Is chickpea trying to jump out of the pot. The cook gets back in the pot. And the chickpea says, let me get out of here. He says, no, you stay in the pot. He says, but I don't want to be in this pot anymore. It's not the water anymore. Then he says, stay in this pot. I'm preparing you to mix you with the spices of life so you can have this vitality and bring that vitality to someone else. Well, none of us like being cooked.
My sponsor's cat is named Rumi. Do you think that that's the poet resurrected?
I don't know, maybe.
Probably not. All right. Well, until next time.
Okay. Peace out. Go Lions.
Tend your life. Tend your myth. Cultivate your narrative with whomever you're